All right, it's your story. It's one of my favourite times of the week here. And tonight, it's an amazing story. The next guest is known as Australia's youngest property tycoon. Now, his journey began living in Housing Commission and working in fast food restaurants while saving up for his first deposit on a property that was on the Central Coast at the age of only 18. Now he's a recognised property investment professional, owning, listen to this, 60-plus investment properties, which he owned by the age of 31. Joining me now is the inspirational Eddie Dilleen, CEO of Deline Property. A very good evening and thank you for your time, Eddie.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Pleasure to talk to you.
Terrific, just terrific. Stories like yours are, as I say, endlessly inspirational to me. For people like that, it started off with me meeting a guy who was a carpet layer years and years ago. I'd employed him to lay some carpet in the house I just purchased in the lounge room there. And as I got talking to him, as he banged away with that knee pad thing, you know how they lay the carpet, the edge of it. And I said, "How are you going?" He said, "Oh, I'm up to my fourth house now, as far as negative gearing, and I hope I'll be out of this in the next 4 or 5 years." And I thought, gee. And sure enough, I cut a long story short, I didn't meet him again, but I heard he was well out of carpet laying and well on his way about 4 or 5 years later. And your story is obviously something a little like that, Eddie. Where does yours start?
Yeah, so mine starts, I guess, from very extreme humble beginnings. Like I grew up in Housing Commission, as you said, and no one in my family, surprisingly, none of them owned any property at all. So grew up in Housing Commission, mum and dad unfortunately split up, and it was pretty much just myself, my mum, and a couple of siblings, and mum was on a pension as well. So our only source of income was her pension, and basically just times were extremely tough growing up, and we realised that at that time we didn't own a house. There was very little money coming in. We grew up in a really rough neighbourhood. Like it was probably one of the worst neighbourhoods in Western Sydney. And I guess growing up in that kind of atmosphere, I just realised in the future that I wanted something different for myself and, kids when I have kids, etc. So when I was 14, 15, I was working at McDonald's and then KFC, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to buy a property when I'm 18 years old. So at least, that I'll get my foot in the door. And before you know it, I bought the first property when I was 18.
That's amazing, because you weren't exactly working in high-paying jobs, were you?
No, not at all. So I was working at McDonald's. Like when I was 18 years old, my income was about $550 per week. So, 28,000 a year, whatever it is.
Can I just examine that, analyse it a bit more? So you're helping your mum, I suppose, with some board money at that stage?
Yeah, so I was trying to chip in for bills and things like that because, again, she was just on a pension. So there was times where we couldn't put food on the table, etc. But yeah. And
so you were still able to save and put together a deposit. Can you remember what amount that deposit was? Yeah,
so about $20,000 initially. Like I saved up over 2 years, $200 a week. So after two years, had about 20,000, and I bought a very, humble beginnings. It was a 2-bedroom unit on the Central Coast, like an hour and a half north of Sydney, around the Central Coast. That was at the time only about $138,000. It was renting. It already had a tenant in there, and they were paying at that time $220 a week. So based off $138,000, like the rental return was pretty good, and it covered basically everything already. So I bought it as an investment property, and I did a 10% deposit on that. So of course, 10% of 138,000, 13,000, and then stamp duty, etc., was just shy of 20K.
That's terrific. And you did all this at the age of 18. I mean, I was still a complete idiot. I know I may still be an idiot, Eddie, but I'm at 18, I definitely was an idiot, and I just didn't think it through. I wouldn't have thought things through like that. And I more kudos to you for being able to do all this, especially in the tough circumstances of your home life. So how do you progress to the next property? Okay, you've got your 2-bedroom unit on the Central Coast, and you've got some equity in it. Not all that much, I guess, but you've got some. So what do you do next to get the second and third and fourth properties?
Yeah, so the second one didn't actually come for probably like 2.5 years after that. I kind of, like looking back on it, I kind of fell asleep and started partying and, being a teenager.
Yeah.
But I kept saving after that. And I was trying to put, $250, $300 a week away over time. Instead of making only 30K per year, I started making 45K per year, then 50K per year, etc., which is still really low. But I built up another deposit of about 25,000. I bought the next property through savings. That was a little house in Adelaide, about 25 minutes out of Adelaide.
Okay, so now I'll just interrupt if I may here. So you're in Sydney though, and by that stage you're a young guy in his early 20s, and what makes you buy in Adelaide is just the price factor and the location factor. Did you ever inspect the property?
Yeah, I did inspect it. So at that time, what drew me to Adelaide at the time, again, my borrowing capacity is really low. So when I was going to the bank, they said, look, you can borrow 200K max. And I was in Western Sydney, and even then, properties didn't come along for 200K. So how I knew Adelaide is because the dad at the time, he lived in Adelaide. So I'd go visit him, once a year, etc. And I'm like, wow, places are cheap over here. So, I got to know the areas, and the property I bought was about 130,000, that one. And at the time, it already had tenants in there paying about $250 a week. So I thought, why not buy it? Because it's already taking care of itself. So that one was with savings. And then number 3 and 4, I had all this equity. Another 2-3 years went by, and I had the 2 properties which I didn't use the equity at all. So I took out a bit of equity from those 2, bought property 3 and 4. And those were in Brisbane that time. And
so on until the point where, roughly how many properties would you have an interest in now, Eddie?
I just ticked over to about 70 properties in total last week.
That's wonderful. I don't know where to start asking questions with us. Do you need, I'm thinking about, with so many, and they're all rented out, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I live in my own home now, which I own, but all the other properties are all rented out, etc., to tenants. And I have property managers that manage all of these.
That was going to be my question. Yes, you're getting to the point. It's getting sort of industrial and corporate, really, in your world, isn't it, regarding property?
Yeah, definitely. So property managers look after them. In terms of like a strategy of buying, like I try to take the emotion out of buying property. So out of the 70 properties, I have bought different types, whereas a lot of people, want to buy a house that is 4-bed, 2-bath, and they could see its big backyard, etc. I've bought some houses like that, but I've also bought properties like townhouses, and I bought some 2-bedroom units, and I bought some house and granny flats and duplexes and different things like that, which a lot of people don't think of because they get more drawn emotionally to, this place looks nice, I'd live in here, so let's buy it as an investment property. Whereas, I bought, out of the box kind of big properties as well.
At this point, have you actually ever sold any of your rental properties?
I've sold one. And that was property that I bought in Queensland out of them. But all the other ones, I've just kept them and held them and rent them out.
My goodness, Eddie, you are, as I say, inspirational. Now, the book you've written is called 30 Properties Before 30, which obviously is self-evident what you're talking about, and how you can start investing in property right now. And obviously, from what you've just said, you do not have to come from some sort of position of comfortable financial security, do you?
Absolutely correct. So, I bought, as an example, out of the last 10 properties that I've bought about 5 or 6 of those in Perth now. And since during this building my portfolio, I bought ones in Sydney and more expensive ones as well. But just to give you an example about what's possible right now for anyone looking to get in the market, get their first one or get their foot in the door, I bought some properties in Perth recently within 8 kilometres of the Perth CBD. So we're talking very metro, right? I bought a 2-bedroom unit in a suburb called Maylands. And that's very, very close, good, quality suburb, etc. 2-bedroom unit. I picked that up literally 2 months ago for $250K.
That sounds very cheap by East Coast standards, doesn't it?
Definitely. That property, I just got tenants in there, and they're paying $450 a week, and I paid $250 for it.
Gee.
And not only that, right? So let's say someone was looking to get in the market, that $250,000 property, banks will. I did a bigger deposit on it because I didn't need to put down a small one. But I know people and family, friends, etc. You can actually get in with a 10% or a 5% deposit. So let's say someone was getting their first property, right?
Yeah.
5% of $250K, it's $12,500.
Yeah, well, yeah, put like that, it only requires a certain amount of financial discipline, and people, as you say, can do it, can't they?
And definitely, saving $12,500 for initial deposit on a basic property like that, you're not going to live in it. Maybe you're going to rent it out and use it as a stepping stone. Of $12,500, you could save that. You're able to put $250 a week away. 12 months away, you'll be able to get that. Anyone working at McDonald's like I was, or KFC, or anyone could, buy that.
I was able to swing it. Eddie, we have to leave it here, but it's just wonderful to talk to you. And 30 Properties Before 30 is the name of the book. It's or the subtitle, How You Can Start Investing in Property Right Now. Where is it available?
So it's available at all the major bookstores, like your Dimmicks and online and everything like that. I've actually got a certain number of these copies to actually give away. So I bought, about 10,000 of these books. They're all about. We're giving them away for free. So if you click on the website that I've got, you can actually get it posted out to you.
What is that website?
So it's delineproperty.com.au.
And Deline spelled Dilleen, is that right?
Correct, yeah, Deline Property.
Deline Property. I think it would be very good reading for a lot of people. Eddie, as I say, I want more in Australia, more Eddie Deleens and fewer politicians and bureaucrats. I think that we'd have a much better Australia, but that's just a personal opinion. You know what I'm getting at, don't you? People who actually do go out and make something like that instead of just... anyway, leave it there.
Give it a go.
Yes, give it a go. Yes, don't hide behind government. All right, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you maybe in a year's time with the story of 100 plus properties. Who knows where it'll end?
Thank you so much. Sounds really good. You can count me in.
Right here.